welcome to the MJ Take on Sports Fan Entertainment, continuing my recaps for the 2016 NFL season, and today we are talking about the Arizona Cardinals, and this was certainly a disappointing season for the Arizona Cardinals, and a disappointing season for me because I had this team going to and winning the Super Bowl. Ouch! I thought they were going to go 13-3 in the regular season, double ouch, and they failed miserably at both. And even when I went back and I looked at this season, though, I still saw a lot of things that were Super Bowl worthy, a lot of things with this team that you have to look at and like a lot, but for some reason, they just couldn't put it together this year. And we're going to look back to see what went wrong, what we can do to fix it, then look to the 2017 offseason to help improve this team and get them to where they need to be, which is back in the playoffs at least. So let's look back to the 2016 season, some key games from this season. I look at week 1 against the New England Patriots at home in Arizona against Jimmy Garoppolo. Chandler misses a huge field goal, something that he would continue to do throughout the entire season. Catanzaro had a terrible year. And if you can get this win, you start the season off right, and perhaps you go down a much better path than you ended up going. Outside of that, though, the next week after that, you guys go and you guys absolutely kill the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in your own building, so that was nice to see. And you saw serious Super Bowl potential with this team. Still, you said, hey, we lost to the Patriots, but whatever. We blew out the Bucs team. Look at this window right here. This proves that, hey, we can certainly win the Super Bowl this year. This is still a Super Bowl worthy team. But then week 3, another key game as you go to Buffalo and you get whooped. Carson Palmer, 4 interceptions, a special team snafu yet again for this football team. And we all said, uh-oh, okay? Buffalo has been known to suck other teams and other players into their stadium and upset you from time to time. But man, losing the way they did, you just had a bad feeling. Losing by 15 points to the Buffalo Bills, who proved to not be a playoff team. This was a true testament to how this season would go. After that, then you guys go lose to the Los Angeles Rams. And I know the Rams have been known under the Jeff Fisher era to beat some divisional opponents, but that was a bad loss as well. But the next key game for me was actually against the Seattle Seahawks. In either week 6 or week 7, you look at the 6-6 tie, and multiple chances to win that game. Catanzaro, another huge missed field goal in that game. A couple, actually, maybe, if I remember correctly. And if you guys can win that game, again, perhaps you go down a better path because the Seahawks only ended up being 10-5-1 this season. You get this win, they're 10-6, you're 8-8. You still have to get some more wins here and there, but if you do, maybe you win this division instead of Seattle. So it's unfortunate, especially considering the fact that you guys went to Seattle and won later on this year. And that's, to me, the next key game from this season. Going to Seattle, winning their huge win for this football team. And it showed that, again, this was a team that had huge potential, man. A team that really could have done something this year, had the talent to do something, but alas, did not. And, there are some other key games there, but to me, those were the most important from this season. When we look back at the positional aspect of things from this season, let's start at the head. That is the quarterback of this football team, Carson Palmer. And a little bit of a down year for Carson Palmer. But I don't think it was a terrible year. Everyone's talking about like, oh my God, Carson Palmer's done, he's finished, we need to move on, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it was that bad. I think it was bad in a certain number of games that you lost, like against the Vikings, like against the Buffalo Bills, definitely. And then perhaps another game, like the Panther game, he wasn't great. And then perhaps another one as well. But man, to me, he wasn't the huge problem here, but this was a down year for him. But overall, he still had a good year to me. In terms of the quarterbacks in the NFL, for ranking his performance relative to everyone else, he ranks about 13 to me, and that's not too bad. So, we look at the running back position, though. What a superstar. In David Johnson, this guy absolutely arrived on the scene this season. Over 2,000 yards from scrimmage, 1,200 rushing yards, and over 800 receiving yards for Mr. David Johnson. He was fantastic. And I was shocked to see that he only had 4.2 yards per carry. I'd like to see that number improve in the future, but with what he does in the receiving game, he more than makes up for that. He was fantastic. But outside of him, though, Not impressed with the running backs this year. Chris Johnson got injured early. Andre Ellington looks like he's lost every single bit of skill and speed and athleticism that he once had. They need to improve, to me, a backup running back position, because right now there's not much behind David Johnson. If he gets injured, y'all are so screwed. We look at the wide receivers. Larry Fitzgerald. Very good year for Larry Fitzgerald, and he's catching such a high percentage of his targets. It's ridiculous. I want to say he caught 107 of his 150 targets. That is absolutely insane. He is fantastic. We look at J.J. Nelson, though, and he catches a very low percentage of his targets. I want to say about 40%. He caught about 30 of his 77 targets, maybe about 33, actually, and that's pretty low. And some people like J.J. Nelson. I don't know why. I still prefer John Brown over him. I know John Brown had a bad year this year, especially for his standards, but I still like John Brown over him. And I think this year we saw there's some issues with Nelson's game that I really don't love. John Brown, though, yeah, a down year for him. Last year got 1,000 receiving yards. This year, only 500. Also had some injuries, okay, but he needs to be better than that in the future. Dear God, this guy used to be so good, and this year, I don't know what happened. And unfortunately for me, I drafted him in one of my fantasy leagues, my most important fantasy league. We look at the tight end position, and honestly, it stinks. Okay, Jermaine Gresham, that guy's washed up. He's done. And Troy Nicholas out of Notre Dame, I want to say 3 years ago, he hasn't shown much at this level. So to me, this tight end position pretty much stinks right now. They need to improve it. And the offensive line had some health issues. Okay, Gerald Valdir missed a number of games. You also saw the right guard position in flux as well. And you saw some issues there. Now you look at DJ Humphries at the right tackle position. Okay, this is a guy that is now in his second year, or was in his second year now that the season is over, and he did not have a great year. Okay, give up about 7 sacks at about 13 starts. That's too much, too many penalties as well. But I did like his run blocking ability, and I saw that on film. He was able to make some room and some way for David Johnson in the run game and even in the screen game. So I like him there. I like his upside still, so we'll hold on to him. AQ Shipley at the center position. He actually did a good job this year. I liked his play. Mike Upati, he's very consistent, but hopefully next year your offensive line is actually healthy. In terms of an offense MVP, it has to be David Johnson. Let's move on to the defensive side of things. So let's start with the defensive line. Calais Campbell continues to be so consistent, even at his advanced age. This guy is fantastic. At nose tackle, Corey Peters, who continues to be pretty good, actually. I mean, he may be even very good as a nose tackle in the NFL. We have Frosty Rucker on one defensive end position, and he's not great. Also, I want to say Rodney Gunter. I can't remember which Gunter, but a Gunter at the defensive end position behind Frosty Rucker. And to me, they need to upgrade this position, and that's why they took Robert Nkemdiche in the first round, but he has not panned out, and I was exactly right. I could not have been more right as it pertained to Robert Nkemdiche, as I called him, Robert Clowndiche, multiple times. I tried to warn you. I tried to warn the Cardinals, and no one believed me. We'll get more into that in a second. Look at the linebacking core. Chandler Jones. Fantastic. And what a steal, honestly. To get him from the New England Patriots for only a second-round pick, he's proving to be more than worth it. Over 10 sacks for him. Look at Markus Golden, over 10 sacks for him. What a dynamic duo here for the Arizona Cardinals. Jones is an upcoming free agent, but I expect for them to re-sign him. Look at the inside linebackers, Kevin Minter, Dayon Buchanan, also in the inside a little bit, also a strong safety. You know they run this type of scheme, this little dime scheme that they run, and they're good inside linebackers. Look at the safeties, Tyrann Mathieu, when he's there. Sometimes he's in the slot. I like the fact that they move these guys around. I mean, they like versatility. I like it. It works. They do a very good job. Now, he was injured some this year. You know, injuries continue to be a problem for him, and hopefully he can fix that in the future, but it doesn't appear like that's ever going to happen. But when he's on the field, he's very good. Look at the cornerbacks. We like Patrick Peterson, of course. Now, the other side, though, is a disaster, and the slot corner right now isn't much better. Okay, Marcus Cooper started this year and did come down with 4 interceptions, which was nice, but he got burned a number of times in coverage. Okay, he's not very good. Justin Bethel, not very good. He took Brandon Williams in the 3rd round. He hasn't proven to be very good at all. I think he's been terrible. So the cornerback position right now for the Arizona Cardinals, pretty disastrous outside of Patrick Peterson to me. Justin Bell was fine as a slot corner, but no one starting opposite of Patrick Peterson worth a damn. Look at this free safety position, Tony Jefferson. What a year for Tony Jefferson back there doing a fantastic job. I really liked his play this year. And they also got DJ Swearinger involved a little bit, and I liked his play in the safety core. He played more strong safety, of course, and I liked his play. So defensively, who's the defensive MVP? I gave it was so close to me between Chandler Jones and Marcus Golden. So I give it to them both. Okay, Calais Campbell, he even deserved an argument as well. I didn't want to give it to three people though. I thought that would just be too much. But with both these guys combining for over 23 sacks, they deserve something, so I gave it to them both. So with that said, let's look back at the 2016 draft class for the Arizona Cardinals, and I hated this draft class, and I hate it even more now. I gave this draft class a C grade. This was my lowest grade of any of the draft classes in the NFL, and the Cardinals, honestly, have had the worst draft class of any team in the NFL. This draft class was horrible, and I knew it was horrible. When they took Nkemdiche in the first round, and so many people didn't understand why I hated this pick. Now you understand why. The guy's a clown. The guy doesn't want to compete. Guy doesn't want to work. Guy doesn't care. He was benched a number of times this year, inactive, finished the year with one assisted tackle, not even a solo tackle. The guy's pathetic. The guy's a clown. Robert Clowndiche, that's his name. I don't care what they tell you on ESPN. I don't care what his mama tells you. That boy's name is Robert Clowndiche, and he stinks. Okay, and he's always going to stink. Prepare to move on from him next year. It wouldn't shock me in the least if Robert Nkemdiche is not on this roster next year. The guy's a clown. So that was a horrible pick, and I give it a D+, and it's proven to be an F, okay? And that's pretty pathetic, but it's pretty true. We look at the third round. Brandon Williams, the cornerback out of Texas A&M, and you traded your second round pick for Chandler Jones. I understood it. I loved it. So you took Brandon Williams. You needed a starting corner outside of Patrick Peterson to compete with Marcus Cooper. Fine. You took the wrong cornerback here. There were plenty of other cornerbacks that were better than Brandon Williams. I gave it a C+ at the time. It's proven to be probably a C-. Honestly, I've not been impressed with him at all, but at least he's on the roster, I guess you could say. But he's a third rounder, so of course he is. A fourth rounder, I actually like these fourth round picks more in Evan Boehm out of Missouri, the center, and Marquis Christian. I gave the Boehm pick an A- and Christian pick a B+. And I was wrong here because Christian isn't even on the roster anymore. And Boehm played a little bit, but I thought he was going to win the starting job at center, and he didn't. So I was wrong here. So you're talking about even the best grades I gave this draft class were just wrong. This is just a terrible draft class for the Arizona Cardinals. And perhaps Robert Nkemdiche can clean up his act in the future, but man, that ain't happening. Have you heard Bruce Arians talk about this guy? Man, this guy is in such a doghouse. It's incredible. And it's okay, because he looks like a dog. So with that in mind, I gave this draft class a C, and right now it's been a D. I mean, and that's just being nice. There's really been no production from this draft class, and it's been pretty pathetic. All right, so with that in mind, the 2016 season is gone, and now let's look forward to the 2017 off season. So in terms of cap space, there is aplenty, as the Cardinals are scheduled to have $39 million in cap room. Okay, now we're having a conversation. In terms of draft picks, you have 8 draft picks. Good. You got to draft better than you did last year. Okay, last year's draft won't cut it. If you keep having drafts like you had last year, dude, you are going to go so down so quick. You'll end up being the Cleveland Browns in 2 years. I'm not even kidding. 2 years, Cleveland Browns, you are. Don't want to be there. Got to draft better next year. Some key free agents, some very key free agents, okay? Chandler Jones, Tony Jefferson, Calais Campbell, Kevin Minter. All must be re-signed, even Calais Campbell at his advanced age. And I know you feel that Tony Jefferson is a guy that we could replace perhaps, but to me, don't take that chance. Re-sign him. He had a great year. Chandler Jones, you will franchise him at least. Okay, good. Calais Campbell, he's bringing just such a veteran leadership to this squad, such consistency. I want him back. And Kevin Minter, he's been a good inside linebacker for you. So to me, bring these guys back. Now, outside of that, you have some room to make some decisions. Okay, so we look at DJ Swearinger. After the year he had, I think he's going to ask for too much for you, and you really don't need him. Okay, this is a guy they really don't need. Although he's good, we could live without him. So let him go, because he's going to probably sign for a deal worth more than $5 or $4 million per year, and I'm not willing to pay him that. Alex Okafor, a nice rotational guy. If you can re-sign him at an outside linebacker position that he plays, and he can be a nice rotational guy, that's fine, but he may ask for a little more too, because there are some teams out there that are going to be really desperate for a pass rusher, and they could rise up his stock a little bit on the free agent market. AQ Shipley at the center position. Now, if you have faith in Evan Boehm, if you like what you've seen in practice and training camp, whatever, go ahead. That way you can get some production out of this horrible draft class, and hopefully it can be upgraded from a D back to a C. Look at the running backs, Chris Johnson and Andre Ellington. Again, not impressed with Andre Ellington this year. I'm not sure if he's still passionate about the game of football. I know that's very sacrilegious to say, but I really didn't see it from him this year. We look at Chris Johnson. He's getting old, and if he wants to re-sign, we could, because since he was injured this year, you could actually probably re-sign him to a nice, like, 1 year, $2 million deal. I mean, it could be that cheap, so I would look to re-sign him, but Andre Ellington, I'd say hit the road. We look at Markus Cooper. Let him go. He hasn't been a very good corner. Again, I know he had 4 interceptions this year. Has not been a very good corner, and I don't want him on my team anymore. If you want, especially because you're going to want to draft or at least sign a new cornerback in there. You can have him in there to compete, but I'm not sure the money he's going to ask for, at least $2 million, is going to be worth it. So to me, let him go. That's just to me. So some team needs, okay, offensive guard, specifically right guard. Mike Upati on the left guard position, he's good. Right guard, we need to improve. Look at the cornerback position. Again, we need a corner opposite of Patrick Peterson desperately. Let's go get one. We look at defensive end. Okay, so right now, again, opposite of Calais Campbell, we need somebody right now. Frosty Rucker, Rodney Gunter, they're not very good. We need to get someone in there to me. Tight end, Jermaine Gresham, not great. And if we could give Carson Palmer a nice safety blanket at tight end, like an O.J. Howard in the upcoming draft, or we could sign a free agent, give him a nice safety blanket over the middle, hit some seam routes and whatnot in this Bruce Arians offense, that would be nice to have. Wide receiver. I'm not in love with J.J. Nelson and John Brown right now. They're guys that, first of all, they're not very imposing physically, obviously, but more so, they're not very good at catching the football. They're not very consistent. So, I mean, is it really worth having these guys? I would seek to upgrade here. And also, Larry Fitzgerald isn't getting any younger. But also, with that said, I'm not sure how worse he's getting. He's still pretty good. So I'd like to compliment him with somebody better than Nelson and Brown. A lot of people disagree with me here, so it's a lower need. But to me, it's a need. We look at quarterback. Okay, so Carson Palmer is getting old. We get it. And although earlier in this video, I did say that I pretty much liked his year this year, we could still, solidify this position some more and perhaps start to groom a next guy. Because right now we have Drew Stanton behind Carson Palmer, and we've seen plenty of times that Drew Stanton isn't very good. Okay, we all remember that horrible game, the Panthers and the Cardinals in the wild card round on ESPN, and my God, it was god awful. Okay, so we could seek to upgrade and solidify our quarterback position, take a quarterback, let's say, in the draft, and mold him in the future. So, some potential free agent acquisitions. We look at offensive guards. Ronald, Leary, Kevin Zeirler, Larry Warford, Brian Winters. Cornerbacks, Logan Ryan, Prince Amukamara, Drake Kirkpatrick, and Captain Munnerlyn. Some defensive ends, Chris Baker, Damian Square, Carl Klug, and Jonathan Hankins. Look at some tight ends, Jared Cook, Jack Doyle, Martellus Bennett, and Vernon Davis. Now, personally, I'm not in love with these tight ends. I know Jared Cook's having a great year right now, but I don't know. I still don't trust him. I would probably seek to upgrade in the draft because this is a very tight end rich draft. We look at the wide receiver position, Kenny Britt, Dontrell Inman, Pierre Garçon, Brian Quick, Kendall Wright. I think a guy like Dontrell Inman could be very good for this team. Also, Pierre Garçon. They give you something a little different than what you currently have, and you don't necessarily have to spend a draft pick on one, although you could. So with that in mind, let's talk about draft picks. Potential first-round draft picks for this football team. Now, let's start with some offensive linemen, and I doubt they would take these guys because I think their value would be much lower than this, but Let's just say their names anyway. We look at offensive guard Quentin Nelson and offensive lineman Cam Robinson. I've heard some sentiments that Cam Robinson could play guard at the next level, so I can see them playing him there, so we could take him there. We look at and also since they were able to take Robert Nkemdiche foolishly, they could take Cam Robinson too, because they both fall under some character issues. So for better or not, they could do it. Look at some cornerbacks. Okay, Marshawn Lattimore, Tease Tabor, Quincy Wilson, maybe Marlon Humphrey, all viable options. I don't know why. Okay, I've been mocking the Cardinals to take cornerback Marshawn Lattimore for a couple weeks now, and Cardinal fans hate me. I don't know why. I think it's such a good fit, and more you're starting to see guys like Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks and Mike Mayock and Mel Kiper and Todd McShay having Marshawn Lattimore as their number one corner. Guys, Marshawn Lattimore is the number one corner if you get him good. We look at some defensive ends. Okay, some 3-4 defensive ends, Solomon Thomas and Caleb Brantley. I'm not sure where Caleb Brantley's stock is right now. It could be first round, it could be second round, so he's possible for both. Look at some wide receivers. How about some wide receivers and Mike Williams, John Ross, and Corey Davis? Again, I'm not sure if they're going to go here, but it's something that's possible, so let's include it. How about some tight ends and O.J. Howard and David Njoku? And some people don't think these guys are going to go this high as number 13, where the Cardinals are currently slotted to select. But man, I really think they could, so let's include their names. And some quarterbacks in Deshaun Kaiser and Mitch Trubisky. Especially Kaiser, man. Kaiser reminds me a lot of Logan Thomas out of Virginia Tech, who the Cardinals took a couple years ago. We're hoping to mold him. They didn't. They failed. And they keep doing that with these guys. But I think Kaiser could really intrigue them like they were intrigued by Logan Thomas. The second round, we look at offensive guards, Dan Freeney, and offensive guard / center, Ethan Pocic. Some cornerbacks in Jordan Lewis, Dory Jackson, and Gary Conley. Some defensive ends in Vincent Taylor, Malik McDowell. Some tight ends in Bucky Hodges and Jordan Leggett. Some wide receivers in Juju Smith-Schuster, Cooper Kupp, Amara Doba, and some quarterbacks in Brad Kaya and Patrick Mahomes. Those are also possible for the third and fourth round as well. So there you go. My thoughts on the upcoming offseason for the Arizona Cardinals, as well as my thoughts on their 2016 season. What are your thoughts? Comment down below. I want to know. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, to subscribe. And until next time, this has been the MJ Take on Sports Fan Entertainment, and I'm out. Peace.